Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers, connecting with makers from all around the world. Here's your hosts, Jamie Page, Chris Cute, and now, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good time, whatever time it is and wherever you are listening. Join me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
Hello.
And Mr. Jamie Page.
Still shouting, Richard.
I'm sorry. Stop shouting. Why is everyone shouting at me?
We're not explaining, so just move on.
Right. As always, tonight's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad at Mancrafting, Pam from Highland Poxes, and also Steve Harneal at Harneal Media, who basically, as we always say now, sorry Jamie, pretty much does the website. And if you want to find out all about our sponsors, then head on over to that website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, and Steve, aka Jamie / let them fight it out amongst themselves, puts all the information up there.
Steve will win.
Yeah, probably. Puts all the information up there for you to find out about them. Massive welcome, a warm welcome to all our live listeners this fine and dandy sunny Sunday evening, or afternoon, or whatever time it is, wherever you're listening. We've done that bit. So they are people like Glyn Senior, Rich. The print's really small. I don't know how do I get my screen to make it? No, that makes it even smaller. It's the other one. Wayne the Woodturner, Richard Bellon, Stace Makes, Steve from Harneal Media, Cuz Hussain, Stace Makes. I think I said that twice, but she probably commented twice. And there's loads of other people as well. Andy Heel and Dale from Maple Tree Studios, to name but a few. How is everyone this week? Chris, Jamie, you good?
Spiffing.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I'm average. I'm fine. Not high,
Right.
not elated, not depressed, just kind of trucking. You know what I mean?
In the middle.
It feels like an episode of Winnie the Pooh. I feel like Christopher Robin. It's like, how is everyone? And Jamie's like, woohoo, boing, boing, boing. Chris is like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Eeyore. I'm Eeyore. Oh, well.
An old ass.
Suppose I'll have to edit it again this week.
Thank you.
An old ass.
Hey,
There we
if
go.
I'm not good at anything else, I can at least do an analogy or two every now and then.
Absolutely. Well, that's our Disney reference thrown in for good measure. So, box ticked. What? We're all about random questions this week, I believe, Chris. Because
Don't ask me. This was Jamie's idea. No, this is none of this. What we're doing today is my fault. Talk to Jamie about what we're doing today.
Oh, okay. Dong. Jamie.
Yes.
Is
I
it
had an idea, apparently. Well, actually, it's not apparently. It's true. I had an idea.
That's it. Which is impressive.
Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be answering some questions. So I put it to you guys. Maybe we should do a bit of a Q&A. So if people have got any questions out in the chat for us as a group or us as singular, feel free to put them out there. I'll take note of them, and we'll get answering. We've also had some questions already over on the Facebooks. So if you've got them written down, Chris, I'm sure we can get to them.
I do have a number of them written down, but I also want to let you guys know
That sounded quite professional, didn't it?
Well, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but I just want to kind of diffuse a certain perception that could be had. We don't know everything, so just because you have a question of us, you may end up with an answer going, I don't know. So we're not trying to make ourselves like out being the wise man on the mountain here. I mean, we don't know all the answers, but we're happy to give it a go.
We've already got a quick question from the chat, and I'm going to kind of change the way it's been written. It comes from Stace Mates. She wants, what's Chrissy's beverage of choice?
Well, I'm drinking it, and I think that was actually her question. It's BEER, and it's the beverage of choice in my household. So there you go. Well, except in the mornings, then it's coffee. But It's the afternoon here. So
Irish coffee, no doubt.
No, not in the morning. No, maybe later on tonight, but not in the morning.
I have
in the morning.
First thing.
No, I don't think so.
Yes, I have my morning coffee out of a flask. It's silver and kind of kidney shaped. No, I have a question, genuine question, and it's for everyone listening. Did anyone else notice what Jamie just did there? With the whole questions thing, we're doing this, and we've got questions. If you've got questions in the chat and blah, 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 but we've got some from Facebook. Chris, what are they? It's like, swerve.
off my plate now. Don't ask me anything else anymore. But we also wanted to put it. Well, we also this would be my fault. I wanted to put a twist on it because we've done many Q&As in the past. I mean, every show we answer questions from the inquisitive Mr. Pugh. But I wanted to kind of turn it around because seldom do we ask the people that are actually, listening and watching live questions that we might have, and so we have a very diverse group of people that are here that may actually be able to help us with some answers. So there's a part of this that is, a little bit of greed on our part that we just would like some of your knowledge headed our way as opposed to you listen to our BS. But I can begin with questions if that's what Jamie, wants me to do, boss. It's up to you.
You're the boss.
But no, I'm not the boss. I'm a little guy. Yes, sir. The plane, boss, the plane.
Oh, Richard is the host. Let's let him decide.
I mean, he did. We'll go with Chris's one, but I was just A, not listening, but B, reading the chat because we've got Jake's mum in the chat who says hi. So
yeah.
Hi, Jake's mum.
Hi, mum.
It was kind of it sort of felt, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, and I feel like I have to explain that every time. I just kind of have a little joke. It was almost like, is Jake around? Is Jake coming out to play? And then his mum's answered the phone. I said, oh no, Jake's got to work, I'm afraid. Sorry, can't come out to play. Said, oh, all right, okay, bye, bye, Mrs. Thompson. It just felt like nice, Just like, you must have done that as a kid. You knock on your mate's door in the summer holiday. It's like that.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Mr. Patterson, can Tommy come out and play? No, he's having his tea now, and then he's got to have his bath. Oh, okay, bye. And you just kind of feel like the kid with no friends and whose parents are just not playing because you're the only one out still playing, and everyone else is having their tea and go to bed.
I used to do that all the time, and the mother or the father would come to the door and go, hi, can Billy come out and play? We're going to play baseball down in the lot. No, Billy's grounded. He's not allowed to go anywhere for the next 2 weeks. Oh, okay.
You just know they're closing the door going, what the hell are his parents thinking? Do they know what time it is?
I'm sorry. And then next time you go, Billy, what the hell did you do, man? 2 weeks grounded? Man, you must have really screwed up. Anyway. I'm ready for questions. If you guys are ready for questions, we have several.
Let's do it. And don't forget, if you're in the live chat listening, then tappity tap the keyboard and ask us questions.
There's some already started coming in, but we can get some.
No, go ahead. I mean, I don't want them to be forgotten, Jamie. Go right ahead. Get them off your plate.
So a young man's workshop says, I need to know what size. Yes, Nate. Yeah.
What's happening, Nate?
I need to know what size lathe is a good to start out with. So I would say a MIDI lathe, personally. Well,
it depends. And you should listen to Jamie before you listen to me, but I'll give you a different rationale. My whole rationale had to do with capability for the future and also the economic expense for the present. So I went out and bought a Harbor Freight lathe, which is a rather long lathe. I mean, it's not a MIDI lathe whatsoever. You can turn some pretty long spindles on that lathe. But for the price, it was comparable to what a MIDI lathe was going to cost me. So I bought the bigger lathe, knowing that obviously you can adjust the tailstock, to make it as MIDI or as long as you want. So I went with length and cost as opposed to just a set size. Do you follow me?
Totally. When I bought my first lathe, it was purely money. It was what I could afford. Looking back on it, actually, I got the right lathe for me, because if I want to, I can get one of those extension things for the bed. I don't have it. it's all these extra things are the nice ones, the nice things to have: variable speed, massive diameter, turny head. The kind of thing that's just mahoosive in the workshop. But if you do you're going to like turning, you might hate turning and then have basically wasted loads of money on a big tool, whereas a small tool, wherever you get, be comfortable, get used to that and be happy with what you've got, and then if you want to, then upgrade it. The wrong tool to buy is the one that you get home and go, oh, do you know what, I wish I'd spent an extra, or I wish I'd got this. When you doubt yourself, that's the wrong purchase. The right purchase is when you go, yes.
Well, let's put it this way.
Maybe look on Craigslist for a second-hand one.
Yeah, and let's put it this way, because Richard, in your shop, and Jamie, in yours, I mean, you've obviously managed to fit a larger lathe in your shop than what you started out with, Mr. Page. So,
without doubt.
So, I mean, there are situations where you have to buy the lathe that will fit in your shop. And obviously, if you have, 36 inches between centers and you have a small shop, that may not work. So you're going to be limited on the smaller lathe, which is fine. And if that's what your situation calls for, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know what? Go at it. I mean, it's just, understand that you're not going to have that length to turn that maybe somewhere in the future you might want to have. So my humble advice would be, if you have the space to expand, then go ahead and try to find the best deal you can for the largest lathe that you can, because you can always turn small stuff on a big lathe, but you can't turn big stuff on a small lathe. But if you don't have the space, then buy the lathe that fits the space. I mean, because look, if you have the space and you buy the small lathe and you get into it and you're going, wow, this is really cool, I really want to do this. Well, now you've spent the money on that lathe, but in order to expand, you now are going to have to spend more money on a bigger lathe. So you're going to save yourself some money in the long run by doing the best you can and buying as big as you can to begin with. But like you said, Richard, it's like, don't go mad with the amount of money you're spending on the thing. I mean, because it may turn out that you don't even like doing it. I mean, I'm just saying, but rather than buying twice, buy once, and then work from there.
Yeah. I mean, when I actually bought my first lathe, I could have got 20 of them in the workshop. Literally, the one that I got, I could have got 20 of them. I could have got a dozen of Jamie's massive lathes, a dozen of your lathes, because it was a big workshop. But then when I moved, and this is the little turning room that Jamie's been in there. It's
I've seen it. Yeah,
you like that. You're on the walls. It wouldn't actually fit my little lathe, which I can't even remember. It's got a 12 inch above. I don't know what the length of it is, but it's not very long. It's a little midi lathe anyway. It literally just fit between the walls. It's like Pat Lap's cupboard,
Right?
You couldn't even extend it on the bed.
You could fairly bit of GoPro in there to help record. You know what I mean? That's how much space you had left over to move.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with anything. Buy the best you can with the money you have. That's pretty much the common advice. Anyway, what other questions you got, Jamie, before we move on?
Right. So the next question comes from Nick the Flaming Turner. He says, question for all of you. What's the one project that you have done that you'd be happy doing all the time?
Don't have one. There's nothing I've ever wanted to turn into a production line. It's just, I enjoyed making it once. I might enjoy making it 2 or 3 times, maybe even 10, but I don't want to do 100. It's just that becomes very uninteresting to me. It becomes work at that point in time.
When it comes to the scroll saw, I couldn't make just one thing on the scroll saw, like a sign or a portrait of one thing or something like that. It'd have to be very. I'd quite happily constantly make bowls on the lathe,
right?
Because I don't necessarily. But if they all had to be exactly the same shape, that would end up getting boring at the end of the time. You have to. They always all have to be different in some sort of way, I would say.
Yeah, I've got kind of a small attention span. I think actually, like a lot of people, we get bored doing the same old thing, and that's why I like the nature of my work of going from place to place and doing different things. But if I had to do the same kind of work, I would be probably torn between kind of fitted built-ins with drawers and cupboards and that kind of thing, or sash window restorations. I absolutely loved it. I've got a job to go to tomorrow doing some rotten windows, and I absolutely love it because every window's different, every bit of glass reacts different, every there's always a little
challenge,
a different bit, something that's slightly different to the last, and obviously you go from place to place and the scenery's different. So that would have to be my answer to that would probably be
right?
Probably the windows.
Stace makes says she enjoys making candlestick holders. She says it's not a hard project, I know, but she can change the design every time on it and make it a different project. So yeah, so I don't. Yeah, to answer that question, I don't have anything that I would love to continue making over and over and over again. I mean, you know what? I guess it would be different if I had a proven if I had a proven design that I knew would sell, and if I knew I could do it on like an X-Carve. So where I could just set it up, hit program, and have the program set and ready to go, and cut out this proven design all the time, I would have no problem doing that because it doesn't take me to stand over it and fuss over it and, you know, sand it, seal it, finish it, frame it, done. You know, I would do that. That wouldn't, because I mean, obviously then it makes sense. At least economically it would make sense. But as far as interest goes,
Yeah.
I would, you know, I don't have the interest in batching out things forever like that. Got any more, Jamie, or should we move on?
Yeah, I've got one more for the time being. Comes from Caitlin the Cat. It says, if you got the opportunity, what project would you want to be part of?
Say it again.
If you got the opportunity, what project would you like to be part of? For me, it would be something Disney related, like Disney Imagineering, kind of the scenery or a set building, or maybe props, but not like as in
not like Thor's hammer. I'm talking about set building.
Yeah, more set building than actual props, but that kind of thing. You know, if I got a call tomorrow saying, "Can you come and help build the Tron ride in Epcot?" I'd be like, "Yeah, what time do you want me there?" I would chew your arm off to get on something like that. That'd be awesome. But that's just me.
I think boat or canoe.
I would like to be. I think I'd like to be part of canoe. That's nice.
A canoe. I think I would like to make a wooden canoe or a wooden boat. That's always been kind of on the bucket list for me. And you know, and there's I'm just going to say this because there's a quick way to cure the bucket list thing that you have. If you're frustrated with bucket list things that you're never going to get to, change the B to an F, then go sit down and have a beer. Bucket list solved.
Drill a hole in it.
Fill it with ice, put beers in it. That's my bucket.
Anyway, but yeah, I've always wanted.
I think for me, I'd probably want to be part of. I think for me, I'd probably want to be part of some sort of stadium build. Like I watched the process of the Tottenham Stadium being built, and some of the things that they've got going on, like one of the longest bars in the UK, like the pitch that retracts under the stadium and all the lighting under there, and so it's got two pitches for NFL and one for football or soccer. You know, they've got they had sound engineers for U2 and I forget what the other guy's name is. But yeah, and just from the start to finish, like to seeing it all come together, I think I'd like to be part of something like that. And obviously, I love my sport as well. So
do something. I don't really know football. I'm dying to make some derogatory Tottenham reference to who. What's the Arsenal, isn't it? The London derby.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, it's got to be something to build the new Arsenal stadium, or
yeah.
We want you to scroll saw the cannon on the side of the.
Yeah, no chance.
Well, here's the first question we have from, and I always give Andy Pugh the right to go first because he's been with us since, you know, I don't know, how old are we, Andy? Anyway, Andy had set this question up, and I'm going to have to kind of paraphrase his setup on this in order to get the answer I think he's looking for. Because I didn't copy and paste the entire thing that you wrote, Andy. I apologize. But Andy had mentioned that a lot of podcasts that he listens to, or a lot of interviews that he listens to, that always end up, you know, speaking to some more of the what you might want to call in our community the quote unquote famous makers. We're talking the Bob Clagett's, the Jimmy DeRestas, things of that nature. And Andy, I want to point something out, if I could, and I'm not doing this as to make it sound like we're better. I'm just trying to, if nothing else, point out how we've been different in that respect, is that we haven't had either of those gentlemen on. And there's a reason for that. And I think the reason is going to be embraced in at least my answer to this question. Now, the question is this. Considering that, gentlemen, what new questions or questions would you like to ask some of these more famous makers should you have them on? Because everybody pretty much knows by now the backstory of these gentlemen because they've been interviewed to death by everybody else. And so the same story has been told over and over again. But is there any new questions that you would ask that haven't been asked yet? Interesting question, Andy. So I'll let Richard and Jamie go first, and I'll give you my answer.
I'd ask the rest of what on earth made him think that he could steal my birthday cake.
That was funny.
And then I'd ask him what makes him think he can go around spraying my leg with spray paint.
Probably the fact that you asked him to, I wouldn't doubt.
Oh, I didn't. Believe me, I didn't. Twice, may I add, twice.
So you had to scrub it off twice. All right, nice.
Yeah.
I've got a kind of a bit of an embarrassing moment I had with Jimmy in the first Makers Central, and it's all to do with questions actually, so it's kind of relevant. You might find this funny. I find it mildly embarrassing. But do you ever do one of those things and just go, "Why did I say that? I could have said anything." Basically, what happened was we all met up in the Hilton Bar. I think this was on the Friday night. It was like late Friday afternoon. Chris, this was the first time you and I first actually met in person.
Yeah.
And you said, "Come on, I want you to meet Jimmy," because you know Jimmy and you've met him those times because he lives at like the bottom of your garden, nearly. Close. He lives local.
Yeah. Well, somewhat
so
local anyway.
And there was Jimmy. I don't know what time he got there, but he was at the bar on his own having a Coke, and he got some peanuts. He just had full of peanuts, and it kind of caught me off guard. And the only question I could think to ask him, just like kind of start a conversation, was, "How's your brother?"
John.
Yeah, John, because I think he'd been ill slightly previously, and it was kind of a mix between, I've got to make it like a sensible, memorable, not the same old question that everyone asks him, and it was like, "How's your brother?" And it just one of those moments, like, why did I ask him that of all the things? Like, hi, that person that everyone knows. You don't know me for Adam, and I want to know about your brother. You know, just why did I say that? I don't know. It was a bit weird. So I don't actually know what question I'd want to ask Jimmy. Maybe how's Rat Boy or something like that. Random.
Matt.
Yeah, his nephew, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his nephew.
I think the best conversation I had with any of the kind of well-known YouTubers must have been with Heath. Because Heath is just one of those people you can just chat to like you've known him all your life about absolutely anything and nothing and then everything again. Really.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a specific question for a specific person. Just I like to chat to them as people and see where it goes rather than like, I really want to know like Macromona's.
I think that's a good thing about the big, let's say in quotes, the big time YouTubers. You can talk to them a lot of people.
Exactly.
Well, because they are. But here's my answer to that question. I think everything that is fitting, my own personal opinion, everything that is fitting to ask these gentlemen has been asked. There are things that wouldn't be fitting to ask them in public, which would be the more personal things about them. You know, those are questions that I don't know, just as a past interviewer of people from my work that I've done, it's just there's a line that you draw. It's like, there is general knowledge, that they're willing to share, and then there's, hey man, you're climbing in my space, back off, so I don't think I would have any new questions for these gentlemen that you don't already have, and so it's almost pointless for us to even ask them on, because I know I could get Jimmy to come on the podcast with us because just Jimmy's a good guy. I don't know Bob that well. I've met him a couple times, but he's also a good guy, and I'm sure if he had the time, he would do it. But I mean, the closest thing we've had to a big time YouTuber on this podcast, I believe, was Peter Brown, and also Carl Jacobson. But they are both such down to earth people that it's not, that wasn't like, oh my God, we go. No, it's just like, hey, check who's going to be with us today, because these guys are just cool people, and that's not that Jimmy and Bob aren't. They are indeed, but they've been interviewed to death. Okay, where Peter and Carl perhaps haven't been as interviewed as much, and so it was worthwhile to bring them on, and plus they're friends of ours, so that's why. So to answer that question, Andy, I don't think I would have any new questions to ask these guys, because I think what has been asked and what should is appropriately be asked has already been asked. Do have a question from the chat, though, that I'd like to, and we can probably just knock this one out in a real hurry. What if I could? Mr. John C. He said, if you could relocate anywhere in the world, where would it be? If you couldn't live where you're currently living in Cambridge, or wherever you happen to be in the UK, and you had to move somewhere else in the world, where would it be?
Anywhere in the world, I'd want to move to Florida.
Oh, God.
Probably because I've never properly lived in Florida. I've visited a few times to Florida.
You'd regret
it just because it's close to Disney, But actually,
really the wrong reason, Richard, to move there. But okay, whatever.
No, well, I mean, you used to live in Florida, so you that'd be like me going, why would you want to come to Cambridge? It's full of
I'm a bit biased.
Students that are drunk, cyclists everywhere, and that's in term time. And of course, when they all go home, it's then all the international students, and it's wherever someone's from, somewhere nice and quiet with a relatively not moderate, what's the word? A modest sized house with a decent garden and a nice big workshop / garage / outbuildings, barns. I'll take a warehouse, aircraft hangar, anything, that kind of size. That'd be my ideal place if money was no object.
Jamie, do you have any place that you've been to that you would go, I could live here?
So it's kind of a toss-up. I'd like to go to Oregon, not just because Carl and Robin are there, but it's a beautiful part of America. Really beautiful part of America. Everywhere you go, it just looks incredible. Plus, the Goonies were there.
John C said if Richard goes to Florida, it'd be a great time to go to Cambridge. Cheers, bud. He has a point, though.
Then obviously you got Texas just because of the steak. And then obviously you got North Carolina because you got to have a moonshine with Sterling.
I think it's telling that the UK boys want to move to the United States, and the United States guy wants to move somewhere to the UK. Because I would actually go. I could live very happily. Well, in several places on this planet of ours, I could very happily live in Ireland, and I don't mean the East Coast. I mean the West Coast of Ireland. I'm talking Shannon and just above. Very quiet, very very nice area to live. And like you said, Richard, live modestly. Give me a nice, good sized shop, and let me do my thing. And I would be very happy living in that atmosphere. But at the same time, look at the Bavarian Alps. And the scenery that is there is just amazingly striking. So there's, I don't know, I don't know, but I can guarantee it wouldn't be Florida. That's what I can say about that. All right, enough with that.
Ireland's a very nice place, but I think Oregon knocks the spots off of Ireland.
All right, rather than answering more questions for us, do you mind if I ask my question to the audience? And and look, if you don't know, then don't answer, because this is like one of those, hey, what kind of wood is this kind of questions. I don't need 500 different answers. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then just wait for somebody that does know to answer. Because I'm not an electrician, but I want to do something in my shop, and I don't know if I should feel comfortable about doing it myself or if I should have a professional come in and do the initial work. And I may already have my answer by saying that. But here's my question. I want to put a sub panel in my shop so that all of the outlets, all of the switches that are in my shop are controlled by that sub panel, and those switches and those outlets are taken off of the main panel in my house. Because I mean, I share a number of outlets throughout the house that are also in my shop, and I can overtax some tools at times and blow a breaker. And I would really much rather have dedicated breakers for dedicated outlets so that I know that wouldn't happen. My question is, should I feel comfortable putting in my own sub panel, and then rewiring the switches and the outlets, which I can absolutely do. I mean, I have no qualms about doing that. Or should I hire a professional electrician to come in and install the sub panel and then go ahead and run the lines myself? Because I don't know, I've never done a sub panel before, and I'm not looking to die. So
if you've never done it before, call somebody in.
Yeah, and Blue Right Turner said that unless you're qualified, Chris, I'd get somebody else. And that's kind of what I was going with too. And I don't disagree with that. But if somebody was to come out and say, no, I've done it, it's simple, you just need to know this, this, and this, and I could go, oh, okay, now that makes sense. I will go ahead and attempt it myself. But if that's not the case, then yeah.
Dale said, do everything without final connection and then get tested by a pro.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. See, and that's the other thing. Though, I mean, I hear that comment a lot, and I'm not looking to kind of go, oh no, Dale, kind of. Oh. I mean, because loads of people do. Loads of people will run their first fix and have and then have the lines tested for continuity by an electrician. The problem is sometimes finding an electrician who's willing to do that, because if you run the cable wrong, if you make a left turn when you should have done a right turn, or you label it switch and it should be not switch, I can tell I'm very electrically minded, then they can take longer to work out
than if they had done themselves, right?
Because electrics is very similar to plumbing in so much as, generally speaking, that trade is always trying to work out what the previous electrician or plumber did, who was trying to work out what the back through until the first one. So it's always like Chris is doing, you're tacking something on to something that was, or this constant updates. It's worse than flaming Windows. And then you're trying to guess what the previous, so it can get really complicated.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable, then don't do it. It's as simple as that. Whether you are comfortable or not is only you can answer that.
Well, thank you, Dale, and everybody who answered my question. I appreciate it, because I agree with Karam as well. I would get a qualified electrician to do it, and I've done my own electricity in my home. This whole room, every outlet and every wire and every light was wired by me, and that kind of work is not hard. But when you're going from the main into a sub panel, we're talking about a lot of serious electricity between the two. And I just wanted to know what, if it was going to be difficult and something I shouldn't do as, stupid homeowner dude, then I wanted to know, and that's all. And it sounds like you don't be stupid homeowner dude, get a guy that knows what he's doing to do it.
It's almost like being in a swimming pool. Have you ever heard the analogy, like when you go swimming and you start off in the shallow end and you get to go towards the deep end, as the floor's dropping, you get to a certain point where you can no longer touch the floor. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And anything past that point that you can't touch the floor, it doesn't actually matter whether the floor is 2 inches below your feet or 2 miles below your feet.
If you don't know how to swim, you're going to do it.
Because you can't touch the bottom. So electricity, I guess, is it doesn't matter whether it's 110 volts or 400 volts. It's still going to kill you. You know, it's like it gets to that point of danger where, have you ever changed a light switch? You go into a room, hit the switch, and it goes click on.
Yep.
It flashes, and the bulb's gone. And you're like, has it really gone though? Like, it's the only light, and you go click, 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 click. No, it's definitely, the bulb's gone. And someone else will come in and go, really? Click, 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 click. And you're like, is it on or is it off? We'll look at the other switch, and then but That's
No, I hear you.
could be the other way up, and you're like, is it up, is it off? And you're like, oh, I don't know. So what you do is you get the new bulb and you put it in, and you're like that, trying to work out whether it's because you think. Have you ever done that? I do that all the time. Like, click,
Was
click,
it the
click,
bulb or
click.
was it the fixture? Yeah,
Is
no,
it
I hear
me?
you.
Yeah.
I went through a bit of that myself. All right, let's move on. Let's get some more of these questions asked of us, and then you guys can chime in and ask the audience the questions that you prepared for yourselves.
So very, very quickly, Chris, I saw one in the chat, and I'm desperately trying to kind of keep up with these, and I think we've already completely failed. But Emma, a while back, Emma from Dragon Tail, mum of Dragon Tail Attorneys, asked who chopped my hair. It was Kat with like a set of clippers, and she just went straight over the top. So I don't care because I can't see it. So,
It's called the
There
bowl
you
cut. Put the bowl on the head, collar on the edges. You're done.
yeah, it was literally hedge trimmer job, like Full Metal Jacket styling.
Well,
There you go.
the next few questions are from a gentleman who I know is in the chat today. So, Mr. Chris Murray. Hi, Chris. Welcome and thank you. Gentlemen, what is the first tool you bought, be it for necessity or just because you said, oh, that's cool? What is the first, not the first tool that you were given or had, but what's the first tool you went out and pulled money out of your pocket and actually went out and bought?
Right. So I was sitting thinking about this one, and believe it or not, the first tool that I ever personally bought was this Coronet Herald.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, every other thing was gifted to me, but for birthdays, Christmases, or just a random gift.
But you didn't
Absolutely
even buy
everything.
You didn't even buy a scroll saw.
No,
So who?
Vicky
who
bought
do we-
Vicky bought my very first ever one, and then Vicky bought the first Record Power one, and then the other ones just Record Power kept supplying me with other scroll saws as and when I wanted them.
Please keep using that stuff.
And also when I had a pillar drill, and I actually got I had a Titan scroll saw, that bandsaw over there, and a few other bits that I got. I actually won something that Screwfix were putting on called Screwfixmas.
Well, we got a lot. Sterling Davis and Steve Carmichael. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. They both just said the first thing they ever bought was a cordless drill. That makes sense. I mean, that's I think that's pretty basic. That would make sense to me. My answer to that question would be, you know what? The first tool that I actually pulled money out of my pocket for I don't believe had anything to do with woodworking. It had to do with automotive. Because when I was young and still living at home, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and I was, working as I was working as a prep cook in a kitchen. I didn't have a lot of money either. So, and I had an older car, and it used to break down a lot. So I used to have to fix my own vehicle. So I was probably something along the lines of a socket set or things of that nature. But woodworking, I think the first tool that I bought had to be just as inexpensive as well, because I didn't dive into woodworking by investing a lot of money, because like I just said, I didn't have a lot of money. So I couldn't go out and buy a big tool because I didn't have big money. So I mean, I bought what it could have been a square, it could have been something minor like that. I didn't really invest in power tools initially. I was still kind of doing things with a handsaw and trying to square things up. So I'm going to guess it was probably a square or something like that. Something that only cost me like maybe $4 or $5. So yeah, I mean, Richard, what about you?
Well, I prepared for this question. The first tool that I actually bought myself.
It's a big one.
Yeah, Chris is like,
I'm having a heart attack. Come on, Ethel.
quick! Come on, someone called the Connecticut Fire Department. No, and it wasn't until you were saying like pre-woodworking, because I used to do a lot of aero modeling. So I would build like military aircraft, like the Airfix kits, and paint them. And like most kids, a lot of kids, some kids, well, I did anyway, build as kids. So I had lots of scalpels and needle files and emery boards and little things like that, small saws. But the first kind of proper tool, kind of grown-up tool, that I bought for myself was this, which is a small Warrington cross pane pin hammer. and I bought that in a little kind of corner hardware store in Farnborough in Hampshire. I think actually it was in North Camp, right on the edge of Farnborough, when I was a student, because I wanted to put some posters up in my student digs. So I got some little pins and a little pin hammer so I could deface the walls.
Chris has another question, but I want to make sure we get all the questions that were asked us in today by each individual. So, Chris, we'll come back to your second question in a moment. But Dale Kirkwood had a question that I wanted to get to. And his question was, assuming you're not a full-time craftsperson or tradesman, so Richard, you may have to bow out of this answer, but you can probably give your perspective. But, hey, I'll leave it up to you. If you could go back in time, and Jamie, I'll pose this to you first. Assuming that you're not already doing this professionally, if you go back in time with the knowledge you have now, would you have chosen to go into your trade and or art and try to make a career out of it, or would you not have in your youth? Do you follow the gist of that question? Rather than treating what you're currently doing as a hobby, if you knew what you knew now back then, would you try to make this a profession rather than a hobby?
No, I don't think I would, because I've seen personally how difficult it is to try and sell arts and crafts pieces. The way people look at scroll saw art and how much they think it's worth, how much they think your time's worth. They basically look at it as a joke, and that's not just scroll sawing, that's carving, that's wood turning, that's pen making, that's everything. They basically think it's a joke, but why buy a handmade pen when you can go to Poundland and get a pack of 10 for £1?
Right.
That's kind of their attitude.
My answer is going to be relatively the same, I think. Yeah, I mean,
and if someone wants to give me £20 for something I've spent 30 hours scroll sawing, I've got something.
Well, it depends. I think it depends on what you're doing, because there are some things that you can do that are very easily turned into a profession. There are others, like Jamie just mentioned, that you would have to struggle at. For me personally, no. But I can only say this, it's kind of like 20/20 vision. It's hindsight vision. I think that what I did, even though I had the interest that I still do now, I had these interests 30 years ago, but I chose not to try to turn it into a profession, and I'm happy with the decision I made. But I still don't like the idea of doing what I love and turning it into a business, because I think I'd lose the love. There's ways to make a living, as especially during the economic building boom that was happening in Florida. I mean, because I kind of, when I was going through college, I had a job with my sister's husband's father's business as a painter, and I painted my way halfway through college. I was an on-site new construction painter, and I saw the construction workers that were doing framing out and building homes and things of that nature, and it's not bad work. It's respectable work, but it's just not something that I ever would really want to do, at least that type of woodworking. But when you get into the kind of woodworking that Jamie's talking about, it becomes very difficult to be successful. And I don't know that, and I'm not saying that people should shy away from it or not give it a try. I'm just saying I don't know that I was equipped to do that, so I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making things like garden furniture or Adirondack chairs, for example, custom beds, things like that, maybe, but things like art.
Then we get into that whole batching out thing again, because once you something sells, you end up having to make a lot of them to make money, and it's no. Yeah, Richard, good.
Sort of a two-part. It's complicated. I think like you two, I don't think I would change anything. If I changed anything, I'd think I would have got into it a bit earlier. I wouldn't want to change anything I've done in my life. So it's not a case of if I'd have known that was going to happen, I might have done something different. I wouldn't want to change anything I've done in my life, and that course that my life has taken only maybe kind of accelerated the timeline a bit. So where I am now is kind of 3, 4, 5 years ago, if that makes sense.
Right.
But going back to what Jamie was saying about the whole difficult to sell things, and I think that is based on your client base. I think there's always going to be a market for scroll saw work, carving, whatever it is, wood turning. There's always a market for that, but I think it is a far more populated area than it used to be. And that just means that it is far more competitive in terms of you have to be a lot better. You know, you can't get away with 60, 70, 80% good. It's got to be
100%.
It's got to be 100%. And you've got to offer that real high-end stuff, but at a competitive price as well. And I think what we've got, and I don't like to say it because I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, you have to be 100% perfect at 80% prices in order to get ahead. And I think if you can kind of walk that delicate balance, then there will be a market. But I think maybe sometimes people are 100% price on 80% perfect. Do you know what I mean?
I could add to that, but rather than add to that, I'll just go ahead and ask the last question we have today because we are running short on time a little bit. And that would be from Chris. I'm going to go back to Chris Murray's question. The second one he said, for the long timers, the people who have been doing whatever they're doing for, quite some time, not for like 2 years. I mean, people who've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. What are your 3 golden rules for a perfect piece? Whatever discipline you wish to comment on, whether it's metalworking, woodworking, crafting, knitting. I mean, do you have 3 golden rules that you follow in order to create the best piece you possibly can? He's saying perfect piece, and Chris, I'll tell you this right now, and I don't care who you ask that actually makes things, they will never tell you that they made the perfect piece because even some of the pieces that people admire as being perfect, the gentleman who made that, if you got him in confidence, would go, see that right there, and that would be it may be very minuscule, but he would still not consider it perfect. So. What do you have 3 golden rules in order to make the best?
I don't really have a 3, but there is one golden rule that I do have when sanding on the lathe. When you think you've sanded too much, sand some more.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it.
I would have included that in one of mine. I mean, I'm looking at it from like a client job, like I don't know, a built-in wardrobe or a new garden gate or whatever it is. You get to that point of finish and then just give it another buff, another coat of wax, whatever it is, make it just a little bit more. Turn up when you say you're going to turn up if you're in that sort of game, and be nice to the client.
And do the job. And do the job you say you're going to do. I have 3, and leave it up to me, Mr. Philosophical, to make them all start with the same letter. And I didn't do this on purpose, but I mean, honestly, when I sat back and thought about it, that there were 3 essential things for me when I'm doing something, when I really care about it. Because a lot of stuff I do, I mean, let's be honest, I toss it together, look at it, it's good enough, fine, whatever. I'm very much like, well, I'm not going to name names, but I tend to put things out that are acceptable, and I don't necessarily always worry about how perfect they are. I am more the kind of, does it work? Does it look okay? It's good enough for me type person. But when I do care, there are 3 things that I focus on, and the first is practice. Practice and learn your skill until the point in time where you don't almost have to think about it anymore. And that may mean that you may have to make the same project 6 times before you get it to where you want it to be. But the 3 that I have is practice, patience, and persistence. Practice, be patient, but be persistent. And persistence means that it may take you to make that project the 6th time, but don't give up on it. Practice your skill, don't be in a hurry, and be persistent, and you'll come up with some of the best work you've ever done.
I think actually to add to everything we've said, and Chris reminded me of something that I read in a conversation I was having in one of the Facebook groups actually, and that's don't overcomplicate it.
Mm-hmm. Keep it simple, stupid.
Just keep it simple. I can't remember what the context of the conversation was. That was it. Somebody wanted, they just go to woodworking. They wanted to build their first project, and that was a box to put tools in. Yeah. Did they? And people were saying, "Oh, get rough sawn timber, and then you can machine it up yourself. And they couldn't find the right width of boards, and how do they make they use different materials. So I could make it out of plywood, and then I can have it at whatever width it was. And people saying, "Oh, you're going to need a table saw. You can then make a jointed edge and rub joint them together." And oh no, you need a jointer. And it's just like, just go to your local timber store, buy planed timber, glue it together. If you haven't got any clamps, give it a little rub and leave it to set. If you've got clamps, put some clamps on it, but just don't overcomplicate it. And I think we all have that tendency. Oh, I'm gonna stain it with this, and I'm gonna put a stain conditioner on there, and then I'm gonna put an after, and then I'm gonna oil it 3 times, and then I'm gonna leave it and give it 4 coats of this, and I'm gonna denib and then wipe down with tack cloth. And you're like, dude, it's garden gate. Like, chuck some creosote on it, job done.
Whitewash, be done with it.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a dining room table, then maybe don't use creosote. But if it's a garden gate, maybe not French polish it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but we all do, and I've done it a million times. You end up going back 2 or 3 times because I just want to put another finish on that.
If you ever French polish a garden gate, I will personally fly to the UK and put my boot squarely where you don't want it, because that's just nonsense.
One of the things that I want to say is you've definitely got to have fun in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to the scroll saw, for me personally, I know you two would disagree. There's thousands and millions of patterns out there, but you can't just go and pick up one that you're not going to enjoy doing.
That's the whole deal. It doesn't matter what we think, Jamie. It matters what you think. If you love it, then you do it, and that's going to be where your passion lies. So there you go. All right. I think we're running out of time here, so we need to let Mr. Page do his thing, and then after that we can do some shout outs. And if there are any final questions, there's some time left, I'm happy to answer them, even maybe when we have to go off the air, when we do our little non-Patreon thing.
I've got a little, let's say, request more than a question, so we can do that after we've gone off air, if you like.
All right, I've got a request as well. Can you not sing?
Unlucky.
Do your thing, Jamie.
As long as you don't shout at me.
Go, Mr. Page.
Right.
Jamie's Page.
Yay.
So the first one, as always, is stickers. So you can get £20 discount at checkout by going to makersinternationalpodcast.com/stickers.
Mm-hmm.
The splash was thanks to Richard. So that's a one email, one use kind of deal with that. So if you've already bought stickers from that website before, just set up another email and you'll get your £20 off at checkout. So there's that. Secondly, Caitlin the Cat and myself both have premieres coming out tonight. Mine is at 11 p.m. Caitlin, I believe, is at 11:15. If I'm wrong, Caitlin, just let us know in the chat. And everyone else will be updated, as will I. So yeah, there's that. My shout out for the week goes to a wood turner. He's only got 209 subscribers, so I'm guessing it must be a fairly new channel.
He's got lots of videos on that channel, though. But go ahead.
Yeah, the stuff he's putting out is absolutely incredible. But the YouTube channel is called Mustard Piece, and it's all one word. So yeah, definitely go and check him out. It's absolutely incredible. So that's my shout out for this week. Mustard Piece.
Richard, do you have one?
I do. I'm just putting the link in the podcast chat. This is a channel. It's a guy called Stu Compton, and he's a bricklayer. And he's got a channel. It's quite a big channel. I'm not necessarily into bricklaying, but he does some really nice kind of ornamental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a simple garden wall, and it's a time lapse, but like beautiful old English country bond or Flemish bond, 9-inch solid walls with beautiful like corbelling and toothing, and it's just absolutely beautiful stuff. Real old school. Do you remember when brick buildings like old railway stations just said, we're proud of what we're doing, and we've got them, it does those kind of
awesome
tutorials and all sorts. So yeah, it's going to be some beautiful stuff. So yeah, Stu Compton.
I'll check it out. All right, my shout out this week is not necessarily a YouTube channel. It's more of a community thing. And I just want to say congratulations. Richard, Jamie, I think you remember we had Amber Davis on with us one time, and I think her father. So, yeah, and well, since then she's been married, so I'm gonna just call her Amber Davis Harris, which is now her last name. She and her husband, as well as Sandra and Sterling Davis, I wanted to say congratulations to, because they have just become parents and grandparents. Amber,
Nice.
Congratulations, Amber, Sterling, Sandra, Austin.
Amber had a boy. I believe it was Friday night. And I was actually speaking with Sterling while she was having it, because he wasn't allowed to have he wasn't allowed to be at the hospital. Only the important people were allowed to be there. Sterling wasn't deemed essential. Funny.
Sterling was allowed in Chick-fil-A though.
Funny. The least essential thing, ladies, in a maternity ward is a man. Trust me.
I'm gonna get Sterling in a T-shirt that says non-essential.
Unless he's your doctor. Anyway, they named the boy Marty Pete Harris, but they plan to call him Pete. He was 7.14 pounds, and both he and Amber are doing wonderfully. So I want to say congratulations.
Nice.
Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's good stories like that we need more of today. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, up to you, man. We are so done. We should probably, as we used to say when I was a teenager, wipe and get off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to do like a quick little. There's a few questions that we missed in the kind of the after party that we don't do because we're not on Patreon, but it's free and we kind of hang around afterwards if we have time. If I very much doubt people are even listening, to be honest, so I'm probably just not even going to bother and just sort of peter off towards.
That's nice. We have a high opinion of ourselves. That's good, Richard. Thanks. Way to build the morale.
So until next week, when we're presumably here again talking about something I don't know. Chris nodded. It's official. We'll be back next week doing something. Until then, you all take care. Do it.
Have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Take it easy, everybody.